Miami rain hammered the windshield like bullets seeking entry. Neon lights from South Beach blurred into streaks of electric color. Pink, blue, gold, smearing across the glass like wet paint. The Tesla stayed eerily quiet except for the soft hum of the electric motor and Olivia's ragged, unsteady breathing. She slumped in the passenger seat, her Armani blazer wrinkled despite its $1,000 tailoring. Silk blouse twisted at the collar like she'd been fighting an invisible attacker. Her head rolled against the cream leather, eyes half closed, unfocused. "Why won't the room stop spinning?" she whispered, her voice stripped of the boardroom steel that usually made investors lean forward and listen. I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, watching a silver Mercedes SUV in the rearview mirror. It had followed us from the charity gala parking lot at the Paris Art Museum, keeping perfect distance. Not too close, not too far. Professional, calculated, patient as a predator. "Water," I said, keeping my voice level. "Breathe slowly. Keep your eyes closed." "I only had one glass," Olivia murmured like a confession whispered to a priest. "I remember giving the speech about the new cancer research wing. I remember the applause. Then, nothing. Just fragments. Flashing lights. Voices underwater. Someone had drugged her drink. The certainty settled in my chest like ice water. I didn't say it aloud because saying it would make it real, would make the fear in her voice sharper. And right now she needed calm more than truth. One mistake tonight and Olivia Chun, billionaire CEO of Quantum Dynamics, tech industry icon, the woman Forbes called the Dragon of Silicon Beach, would be destroyed by sunrise. One photograph, one headline, one moment of vulnerability turned into scandal. I was her chief of staff on paper, the person who managed schedules, filtered calls, negotiated with difficult board members, and smiled pleasantly at people who thought proximity to power meant they understood it. In reality, I was the fortress nobody saw until they hit the wall. The last line of defense that didn't announce itself. 3 years ago, Olivia hired me after I exposed a massive data breach at her rival's company during a freelance security audit. I'd walked into her corner office unannounced, dropped encrypted files containing compromised user credentials on her marble desk, and left before her assistant could ask my name or how I'd bypassed building security. She tracked me down anyway within 6 hours. "Can you stop this from happening to me?" she'd asked that day, her dark eyes sharp and calculating. I'd answered by sliding a detailed vulnerability assessment of her entire digital infrastructure across her desk and letting my silence do the negotiating. Now her inner circle had names the tech world whispered with a mixture of respect and suspicion. David Cross, CFO, charismatic enough to charm venture capitalists and ruthless enough to gut departments without blinking. The board trusted him because he spoke their language, profit margins, and quarterly returns. Nathan Sterling, VP of Global Operations, the efficiency expert who made problems disappear. He smiled with his mouth while his eyes cataloged your weaknesses. And then there was me, Ryan Martinez, quiet in the hallways, present in shadows, judged only by results that nobody could quite explain. Tonight had been a charity gala with cameras, champagne, and 1,000 ways to destroy a woman with one wrong photograph. The Mercedes SUV behind us felt like one of those ways made manifest. The Mercedes accelerated, closing the gap between us. I made a split-second decision and cut hard into an industrial alley behind shipping warehouses near the port. The city lights fell away. The street narrowed. Puddles became shallow lakes that sprayed against the undercarriage. The Mercedes followed, of course. I hadn't expected anything different. I waited until the alley forked, then killed the headlights for exactly 2 seconds, just long enough for darkness to swallow us completely. I swung hard right into a loading dock shadow and hit the brakes. The Tesla stopped silent as a ghost. The Mercedes flew past, its headlights sweeping empty rain and wet pavement. I turned our lights back on. 1 breath. 2. My heart hammered against my ribs. Olivia blinked slowly, confused, trying to track what had just happened. "What did you do?" "Bought us time," I said. Then the Mercedes's brake lights flared brilliant red at the far end of the alley, angry and determined. Reverse lights flicked on, blazing white in the darkness like eyes opening. Time ended. I slammed the accelerator. The Tesla shot forward with electric fury. No engine roar to announce our escape, just sudden violent acceleration that pressed us back into the seats. I took 3 rapid turns through the industrial district, left, right, left again, until the Mercedes's lights disappeared behind us, lost in the maze of warehouses and rain. I drove Olivia to the only fortress I truly trusted, Quantum Dynamics headquarters. No tabloid photographers stalked the building at 2 a.m. No paparazzi camped in the palm trees lining the entrance. The Obsidian Tower had my surveillance system, my encryption protocols, my command center buried 3 floors deep. Every camera, every lock, every server responded to my authority. When I parked in the underground executive garage, Olivia tried lifting her head from the seat, fighting against whatever poison coursed through her system. "I can walk," she breathed, her dignity fighting a losing battle against her body's betrayal. I killed the engine and came around to her door, opening it to the fluorescent garage lighting. I crouched beside her, meeting her unfocused eyes. "Arms around my neck," I said quietly. It wasn't a request. It wasn't an order. It was simply what needed to happen next. She hesitated. A woman who'd built a $12 billion company from a college dorm room, trying to hold onto control with her last thread of strength. Then she reached up, her fingers trembling slightly as they locked behind my neck. When I stood, lifting her, her weight settled against me. Light but absolute. Real. Human. The kind of trust you couldn't betray without destroying something fundamental in yourself. Her cheek pressed against my shoulder. Her breath was warm against my neck. She smelled like expensive perfume and champagne she didn't deserve to have been drugged with. I carried her through the security checkpoint. My badge beeped softly, obediently, into the private elevator that served only the executive level. The elevator rose silently, numbers climbing. The building swallowed us into its steel and glass embrace. On the 42nd floor, I moved quickly past dark glass offices, past the quiet hum of servers behind reinforced walls, past the empty reception desk where Olivia's assistant normally guarded access like a dragon protecting treasure. I took her into my operations room, a space most employees didn't know existed. Leather couch, clean blankets, a mini refrigerator stocked with water and electrolyte drinks, and a medical kit I kept for reasons nobody asked about because the answers would make them uncomfortable. I laid her carefully on the couch, adjusting a pillow under her head. Her eyes fluttered. "Your office," she murmured. "You're taking me to your secret bunker." "Operations center," I corrected gently, pulling a blanket over her. "And it's safer than your penthouse. Because you don't trust my security." It wasn't a question. "I trust mine more," I said simply. Her fingers curled weakly in the fabric of my shirt like she was holding the only stable object in a spinning universe. "Ryan, rest," I said. "I'll figure out what happened." While she drifted in and out of consciousness, I turned to the monitor array that dominated one wall. 12 screens showing camera feeds from across the building and city. I pulled up my secondary system and accessed the gala's security footage. Our charity event had been hosted at the Paris Art Museum, a venue wired into our corporate security network for insurance compliance and liability protection. Most people forgot those cameras existed. I never forgot anything that could be used as evidence. I scrolled through timestamps, searching. There, 10:47 p.m., the Champagne station near the Sculpture Garden entrance. Olivia appeared on screen, elegant in her emerald gown, laughing at something David Cross said. Her posture was perfect, her smile practiced for cameras she knew were always watching. A server in a white jacket passed with a silver tray. Olivia accepted a crystal flute, her movements graceful and unhurried. Then Nathan Sterling entered the frame from behind, approaching from the left side. He wasn't looking at Olivia. He was looking at her glass with focused intensity. His hand moved fast. Something tiny glinted between his fingers, catching the light for just a fraction of a second. He leaned over the champagne flute for one heartbeat, his body blocking the view from most angles. Then Olivia raised the glass to her lips and drank. My throat tightened. I played the footage again in slow motion, frame by frame. Nathan's wrist tilted with practiced precision. A drop fell into the champagne, invisible unless you knew exactly where to look and when. The liquid barely rippled. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth ached. This wasn't opportunity. This was premeditation. Planning. Conspiracy. I copied the clip to 3 separate encrypted drives, then extracted the building's badge proximity data for that exact timestamp. The system gave me everything. Nathan's badge ID, his device MAC address, his access token. Clean as a signed confession. Undeniable as DNA evidence. I pulled additional logs. His movements throughout the evening, every door he'd passed through, every elevator he'd taken. Building a timeline. Constructing a cage made of data. Behind me, Olivia stirred on the couch. The blanket slipped. Her hand reached out, fingers trembling in empty air like she was searching for something solid. Ryan. Her voice was rough, confused. What are you doing? I didn't answer immediately. I saved my work, locked the files behind 3 layers of encryption, and only then turned to face her. I walked to the couch and crouched beside it, checking her eyes. Pupils still slightly dilated but better than before. I counted her breaths. Steady. Regular. Her color was returning incrementally. I held a water bottle to her lips. Drink. Small sips. She obeyed, then whispered, Am I in trouble? I looked at her. Really looked at her. Not the billionaire CEO. Not the woman on magazine covers. Just Olivia. Vulnerable. Trusting me with something more valuable than money. No, I said quietly, adjusting the blanket higher over her shoulders. They are. By dawn, Olivia was clear-headed and furious. The kind of fury that didn't explode. It crystallized into something sharp and surgical. She'd slept in fragments through the night, and each time her breathing hitched, my attention snapped back to her like a tether I couldn't cut. I hadn't slept. I'd sat on the floor beside the couch, laptop on my knees, building an airtight case while monitoring her vitals every 15 minutes. Now she sat upright on the couch, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, blazer discarded, looking more like the MIT graduate student who'd coded her first algorithm than the billionaire who now employed 3,000 people. We ate takeout breakfast in my operations room, scrambled eggs and coffee that tasted like burnt rubber, while monitors glowed with data streams and security feeds. Olivia broke the silence first, her voice steady despite the faint shadows under her eyes. If David and Nathan are both involved, why now? Why at a charity gala with 500 witnesses? Because the board votes today, I said, setting down my coffee. At 2 p.m. David's been pushing the Technova acquisition narrative for 6 months. The merger sounds good on paper, expanded market share, vertical integration, all the buzzwords that make investors salivate. But if you appear unstable, compromised, or unfit, the board has grounds to install temporary leadership pending investigation. Olivia's jaw tightened.
Temporary become permanent.
Always, I confirmed. David would slide into the CEO chair within a month. Nathan would consolidate operations. And you'd be fighting lawsuits and reputation damage for years. Even if you won eventually, you'd lose everything that matters, the company's direction, the culture you built, the projects you actually care about. I opened a folder on the center monitor and pulled up a file I'd been dreading showing her. A parking garage camera still from last night, timestamp 2:47 a.m. It showed me carrying Olivia through the rain, her arms around my neck, her face pressed against my shoulder, her body limp in my arms. The angle made it look intimate. It made it look guilty. It made it look like exactly the scandal they'd wanted to create. Olivia stared at the image, her coffee cup frozen halfway to her mouth. Color drained from her face, then rushed back as anger flooded in. They filmed us. They had a camera positioned. Yes, I said simply. Probably Nathan's security contact. Someone he's worked with before. And you. Her voice caught slightly. You still carried me, knowing they'd use it. I met her gaze without flinching. I did what kept you breathing and out of a hospital where photographers camp in the parking lot. The alternative was leaving you in that car or taking you to your penthouse where your own security team might be compromised. I chose the option that kept you alive and gave us time to fight back. Her eyes locked on mine, dark and intense. Something shifted in her expression. Not just gratitude, but recognition. The quiet man who stood in the background of meetings, who never raised his voice, who people dismissed as just the chief of staff, wasn't quiet because he had nothing to say. He was quiet because he was always 3 moves ahead, always calculating, always building walls around her that nobody saw until they tried to break through. She set down her cup with careful precision and reached across the low table between us. Her fingertips grazed my wrist, light as a question mark. One touch, deliberate, testing. "If this ends today," she said quietly, "if the board votes me out and everything falls apart, I don't want regrets about what we didn't say." The air in the room changed texture, thickened. I didn't pull away from her touch. I didn't lean in. I gave her space to choose. "Then say it," I replied, my voice lower than before. She leaned in first, closing the distance she'd created. When our mouths met, it wasn't gentle or tentative. It was collision. Brief and controlled, but with enough force behind it to feel like a choice made with clear eyes and full knowledge of consequences. Her hand tightened on my wrist, fingers pressing against my pulse point. My palm came up to steady the back of her neck, not forcing, just anchoring her in the moment. The kiss lasted maybe 5 seconds. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright and sharp. The fog from last night completely burned away by adrenaline and determination. "No mistakes today," I said, searching her face for doubt and finding none. Her smile turned dangerous, the expression she wore when negotiating with hostile investors. "Perfect, because today I'm going to destroy them." She stood, pacing to the monitor wall, studying the evidence I'd compiled through the night footage, badge logs, financial records, deleted emails I'd recovered from backup servers. Her mind was already strategizing, planning her counterattack. At precisely 4:15 a.m., every screen in my operations room suddenly went black. All 12 monitors died simultaneously, security feeds, data streams, everything. The hum of the server changed pitch, becoming a whine that set my teeth on edge. Somewhere in the floors below us, cooling fans accelerated with an urgency that meant only one thing: system breach. Olivia spun toward me, eyes wide. "What's happening?" "Attack," I said, already moving. I grabbed my emergency kit from the locked cabinet, flashlight, backup drives, access cards, a small toolkit I'd assembled for exactly this scenario. "They're trying to erase the evidence." "Can they?" Her voice was steady, but I heard the edge underneath. "Not if I get to the server vault first." I headed for the door, then paused. "Stay here. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except—" "I'm coming with you," Olivia interrupted, already slipping her heels back on with swift efficiency. She grabbed her blazer from the chair and pulled it on like armor. "This is my company. My fight." I wanted to argue. Every instinct screamed to keep her safe, hidden, protected. But I saw the steel in her spine, the set of her jaw, and I recognized something fundamental. Olivia Chun hadn't built a $12 billion empire by hiding while other people fought her battles. "Stay behind me," I said instead. "And if I tell you to run, you run." "Understood." She nodded once, sharp and certain. We moved fast through the dark executive floor, emergency lighting casting everything in harsh shadows. The elevator descended to sublevel 3, the server vault level that most employees didn't even know existed. The air down here tasted like metal and recycled cold, temperature controlled to protect millions of dollars in hardware. The vault door responded to my badge after a 2-second hesitation that made my pulse spike. Inside, rows of servers stood like silent witnesses, LED indicators blinking in patterns that felt wrong. Frantic, corrupted. I went straight to the security DVR array, jacking my laptop directly into the system. Someone had tried to purge the gala footage. They'd scrubbed the index files, thinking that would kill the video permanently. Amateur hour. It didn't delete the data, just hid it from the directory. I bypassed the damaged index and pulled the raw video file straight from disk sectors, recovering it block by block. The footage reappeared on my screen like a ghost dragged back into daylight. There, Olivia whispered behind me, watching over my shoulder. Nathan. That bastard. But I'd found something else. An access log spike at the exact timestamp when the CCTV index was altered, 4:11 a.m., just minutes ago. The user account wasn't mine. It wasn't IT's. It was Nathan's administrative credentials used remotely. And beneath that, buried in procurement records I'd flagged earlier, a purchase made on Nathan's corporate card 3 days ago. Late-night pharmacy. Item description redacted for privacy compliance, but the transaction was signed off with an override code that only operations executives could authorize. I didn't need a toxicology report. I needed the pattern. I opened the internal messaging archive, the encrypted backup that corporate officers didn't realize existed. One message sat there, flagged by the system because it had been deleted within 60 seconds of being sent. The kind of deletion that actually draws more attention from security protocols. From David Cross to Nathan Sterling. Sent 10:31 p.m., 16 minutes before Olivia took the champagne. Message. Make sure she can't speak coherently tonight. One photo is enough. Stick to the timeline. Olivia's hand covered her mouth. Her eyes didn't water, they went hard as diamonds. You have it, she said, her voice shaking with controlled fury. You have everything. Not yet, I replied, already working. I exported the footage, the badge logs, the access attempt records, the deleted message, and the procurement evidence into a sealed bundle with cryptographic hash verification. If anyone tried to claim the evidence was edited or fabricated, the mathematical signatures would prove them liars in court. Then I pulled my USB drive from the port and stared at it for a moment. This small piece of plastic and silicon held the power to destroy two men who tried to destroy the woman standing behind me. There was a time in my life when walking away was safer than staying. When leaving a fire meant survival. When getting involved meant becoming a target. I'd learned to be invisible, to protect myself by never being important enough to threaten. But standing in that cold server vault with Olivia's breathing steady behind me, I made a different choice. I snapped the USB drive into a tamper-evident case, the kind used for chain-of-custody evidence, and sealed it with a numeric code that would show any attempt to open it prematurely. Then I slid it into the inside pocket of my jacket, right over my heart. I locked the server rack behind a manual key override and pocketed the key. No more digital backdoors. No more maybe. No more pretending I worked for a job title instead of a person. Ryan. Olivia's voice was quiet beside me in the cold air. I turned. She stepped closer, near enough that I could feel her warmth cutting through the chilled atmosphere. She didn't touch me this time. She didn't need to. Her eyes said everything. I'm not asking you to save me, she said clearly. I'm asking you to stand with me, beside me, where people can see. Something in my chest unlocked. I nodded once, a small movement that carried the weight of a completely reshaped future. Then we do it in the open, I said. No more shadows. No more background. We walk into that boardroom together, and we burn it all down. Her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Together. The boardroom smelled like polished mahogany and expensive fear. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked downtown Miami's skyline, where morning sun burned through dissipating rain clouds. The city looked clean and new, scrubbed by the storm. Inside, the air felt thick with anticipation. 12 board members sat around the obsidian table like judges who'd already written their verdict. Men and women in tailored suits worth more than most people's cars, holding tablets and coffee cups, wearing expressions of calculated concern. David Cross sat 3 seats from the head of the table, his silver hair perfectly styled, wearing a sympathetic smile that probably practiced in the mirror. Nathan Sterling leaned back with the confident ease of a man who believed he'd already won, his expensive watch catching the light. Olivia sat at the head of the table, posture perfect, eyes calm as a frozen lake. She wore a fresh suit, charcoal gray, impeccably tailored, that she'd retrieved from her office. Every inch the billionaire CEO who'd stared down hostile takeovers and regulatory investigations without blinking. I stood behind her at first, slightly off her right shoulder. Close enough to protect, far enough to maintain professional distance. My suit jacket felt foreign on my body after years of preferring tactical gear and casual clothes. But the stance was right. Grounded. Ready. David began, his voice warm and concerned, like a family doctor delivering bad news. Olivia, we're grateful you could join us this morning. We were worried. After last night's incident. He paused for effect. We're concerned about leadership stability during this critical period. The Technova acquisition is delicate. The market is watching. And the optics. He tapped a remote control. The wall-mounted display flickered to life, showing the parking garage photograph. Me carrying Olivia through the rain. Her arms around my neck, her body limp against mine. The image was damning, intimate, exactly what they'd wanted. Gasps rippled around the table. Murmurs. Board members leaned forward like sharks smelling blood in the water. David sighed. A sound of deep regret that was pure performance. This is not about personal lives or moral judgments. It's about risk management and fiduciary responsibility. Olivia, were you intoxicated at a public charity event? Were you compromised? Do you understand how this appears to our shareholders? The trap was perfectly set. If Olivia defended herself emotionally, she'd look unstable. If she admitted weakness, she'd look unfit. If she deflected, she'd look guilty. I stepped forward before she could respond, placing a slim black evidence case on the polished table. Not the USB drive itself, the sealed, tamper-evident container with its chain of custody documentation. Before we discuss optics, I said, my voice even in carrying, we should discuss facts. David's sympathetic smile tightened at the edges. And you are. The dismissal in his tone was subtle but clear. Just the staff. Just the help. Olivia answered, her voice clear as a judge's gavel striking would. Ryan Martinez, Director of Security and Cyber Intelligence. David blinked. Nathan's confident posture shifted slightly, the first crack in his facade. Director, David repeated. Since when? Acting director for 7 months, Olivia said calmly. Quietly, because someone was systematically sabotaging this company. And I needed someone I could trust to find out who. A board member, Margaret Chun, no relation, who'd been with the company since the series of funding, leaned forward with sharp interest. Ryan, do you have something relevant to these allegations? I didn't point at Olivia. I didn't speak for her. I spoke to the room with the calm certainty of someone presenting evidence in court. Mrs. Chun wasn't drunk last night, I said. She wasn't impaired by her own choices. David's eyebrows lifted in theatrical disbelief. Come on. We all saw. I picked up the remote from where David had set it down and clicked once. The display changed. The gala footage filled the screen, crystal clear, professionally lit, showing Olivia at the champagne station, laughing, accepting a glass, then Nathan entering the frame from behind. I let it play at normal speed first. Nathan approaching, his hand moving, the brief lean over her glass. Then Olivia drinking. I paused it on the exact frame where Nathan's hand hovered over the champagne flute, something small and dark visible between his fingers for just one frame. The room went silent in the way a courtroom goes silent when the defense crumbles. That profound quiet when everyone realizes the narrative they believed was a lie. Nathan's face shifted, calculation replacing confidence. Exit routes being evaluated. David recovered faster, forcing a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. That footage is clearly edited, manipulated. This is. I didn't argue. I clicked again. The screen split into 3 panels. Left side, the CCTV footage. Center, badge proximity logs showing Nathan's ID lighting up at the champagne station at 10:46 and 50 seconds p.m. 30 seconds before Olivia took the glass. Right side, security DVR access logs showing Nathan's administrative credentials attempting to delete this exact footage at 4:11 a.m. this morning. Metadata verified, I said quietly. Cryptographically signed. Chain of custody documented. If you think it's edited, we can have your own forensics team examine it. The mathematics won't lie. I clicked again. A deleted message flashed on screen, recovered from the backup archive. From David Cross. To Nathan Sterling. Time: 10:31 p.m. Message: make sure she can't speak coherently tonight. One photo is enough. Stick to the timeline. The silence deepened, became suffocating. Board members stared at David and Nathan like they were seeing them for the first time. Margaret Chen's voice cut through the quiet, sharp as a blade. Is there more? Yes, I said. I clicked through a financial presentation I'd built through the night. Shell companies, fake vendors, bogus invoices tied to an infrastructure modernization project that existed only on paper. Money flowing out of quantum dynamics and into accounts controlled by David and Nathan. Then market analysis showing how they'd benefit from the Technova acquisition, insider positions, stock options, consulting fees. You weren't just removing Olivia, I said, letting each word land with precision. You were engineering corporate failure, tanking market confidence, and positioning yourselves to profit from the chaos. The acquisition would have made you both extremely wealthy, while gutting the company's R&D division and eliminating 300 jobs. Olivia finally spoke, her voice quiet and absolutely lethal. You tried to drug me, photograph me, and destroy me. For what, David? Money you didn't need? Power you couldn't earn legitimately? David's palms opened in a gesture of innocence, but sweat gleamed at his temples. This is absurd. This is a coordinated attack. Olivia, we've worked together for 5 years, Olivia interrupted. I trusted you with our finances, our strategy, our future. Her voice didn't rise, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. I want an immediate vote, right now. Margaret looked around the table. All in favor of removing David Cross and Nathan Sterling from their positions effective immediately, pending criminal investigation? Every hand rose. Not one dissent. Nathan stood abruptly, his chair scraping loud against the floor. I moved before he could step around the table. Not aggressive, not threatening, just placed myself in his path. Calm. Solid. A wall with eyes that had documented every crime and wouldn't forget. Sit down, I said. Not loud. Not pleading. Just certain. Nathan hesitated, looking into my face and seeing something that made him understand. He sat because even predators obey when they recognize someone who doesn't flinch, someone who's already won. David's voice cracked, desperation bleeding through his polished exterior. Olivia, we can discuss this privately. Work something out. This doesn't need to. No, Olivia said, cutting him off with surgical precision. We talk here, public, recorded, witnessed. She looked at the board, her gaze sweeping across each face. I want the appropriate authorities contacted immediately, and I want a full forensic audit of every department they touched. Security arrived within 2 minutes. Not Nathan's people, not building security that might be compromised. My people. 2 former federal agents I'd brought onto the team months ago. Men who understood evidence preservation and witness handling. As they escorted David and Nathan toward the door, Nathan hissed at me as he passed. You're just her assistant. Just staff. I leaned in slightly, close enough that only he could hear, not close enough to give him ammunition for assault claims. No, I said quietly. I'm the reason you're going to prison. I'm the reason every move you made was documented. And I'm the reason you'll spend the next decade wishing you'd chosen a different target. The boardroom exhaled after they were gone. Security doors closing with a definitive click. The hallway beyond felt wider, brighter. The weight that had pressed down on the room lifted incrementally. Olivia stayed seated for a long moment, hands flat on the table, shoulders finally dropping. Board members filed out quietly, some pausing to squeeze her shoulder or nod respectfully. Margaret was the last to leave. That took courage, she said to Olivia. Then she looked at me. Both of you. Thank you for protecting this company. When we were alone, Olivia stood and walked to the windows overlooking the city. Miami sprawled below us, alive and complicated and beautiful in the morning light. She was silent for a long moment, just breathing. I didn't approach immediately. I gave her space to process, to feel whatever she needed to feel now that the battle was over. Finally, She spoke without turning. They were going to end me. Everything I built. Gone before lunch. Yes, I said simply. No point softening the truth. She turned then, and I saw exhaustion in her eyes mixed with something fiercer. Triumph, maybe, or the beginning of healing. You could have stayed invisible, stayed safe. Instead you put yourself in the center of it. I stepped closer, closing half the distance between us. You asked me to stand with you. I don't do anything halfway. Her lips curved slightly. I'm beginning to understand that. I held out my phone to her. You should record a statement. Something direct and factual for the press. We'll release it through official channels within the hour. Control the narrative before rumors start. Olivia took the phone, but she didn't look at it. She looked at me. What did I do last night, Ryan? After you brought me here. The question hung in the air, loaded with meaning. You survived, I said. You trusted me. And this morning you fought back. And earlier? She asked quietly. In your operations room. That kiss. Did I imagine that? No, I said. You didn't imagine it. She stepped closer, decisive and certain, erasing the remaining distance between us. Good, because I meant it, and I don't want to take it back. This time when she kissed me, it wasn't collision or desperation. It was calm. It was earned. It was two people who'd walked through fire and chosen each other on the other side. When we finally pulled apart, Olivia smiled. Really smiled. Not the practiced expression for cameras, but something genuine and free. We should probably address the photo, she said. The parking garage. Let them publish it, I replied. Let them write whatever headlines they want. The truth is already on record. You were poisoned. I protected you. Anyone who wants to make it into scandal can fight our legal team. Her smile widened. I'm appointing you officially. Public announcement. Chief Security Officer. No more acting qualifier. People will talk, I said. Let them, Olivia replied. She laced her fingers through mine. A deliberate gesture that announced choice and partnership. I'm done hiding the people who matter. We stood there in the empty boardroom, hands linked, looking out at the city that had tried to destroy her and failed. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds in brilliant shafts, turning the wet streets into rivers of light. Everything had changed, and for the first time in 3 years of working in shadows, I stood beside her where everyone could see, where I belonged.